On blast.
This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
On blast.
Thank you. You're far too kind for once again tuning in to the Ball on Blast podcast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network. And my name, once again, is Sheldon Alexander, and I am joined with my guy, Andrew Webster. Webby, what's good, my dude?
Straight from the city of champions, better known as the 215, the city of brotherly love, the home of Meek Mill, Philadelphia in the building. What is up?
It's definitely been more dreams and nightmares for the city of Philadelphia. A lot going on. I mean, big news, and maybe their chances to continue to be the city of champs just got a bigger boost this year with the injury news today to Boston Celtics star. Right? Boston Celtics star Kyrie Irving. But we will get to that, obviously, and so much more in this edition of the Ball on Blast podcast. Obviously, we'll talk about Kyrie. We'll break down a little bit of what's going on with the Sixers. We got some fun stuff from, I don't know if you saw the opening, which you might not have, depending on the feed that you get in our country of Canada of March Madness. But there's a very dope opening to the March Madness coverage. Tons of stuff going on. Wild race in the Western Conference. Basketball. I mean, we're here now, Webby, at the end of the NBA season. And I have to say this again because I have to remind myself and the fans. When I first pitched doing this podcast, there was a hesitation on my part, Webby, because I was like, are we going to have enough stuff to talk about each and every week?
A week of NBA with two guys who aren't, we're not calling our sources or anything. We're just two fans who watch the games. I've been watching tons about, I don't work in sports anymore, still watching tons of basketball. I knew that we'd be watching games and we'd be like, hey, did you see this wacky moment or anything? But the storylines from day one up until now, 3 games left to go in the season, has been outstanding.
Yes, so crazy. And you know what, Webby? What all these things, the effect that all these things will have on a team we like to call the Toronto Raptors, and discuss each and every week in a segment we call Wrap It Up.
Wrap it up. What you need to know about your Toronto Raptors.
On blast.
Last week, we discussed how big of a week ahead it would be for the Toronto Raptors.
Big boy week for the Rappies.
Huge week for the Raptors. And they had 2 games against the Celtics, a game sandwiched in between a game against the Cavs, and then obviously tomorrow, being Friday, they will play, or I guess today, by the time people hear this, they play against the Indiana Pacers. Massive week, playoff implications, and to go over quickly what happened, they lost to the Celtics last Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Tough matchup. They lost as well to the Cavs on the front end of the back-to-back, but then salvage, in a moment where everyone was worried. Raptor fans were in a panic. The media was in a panic. They come back and beat the Celtics on the second night of a back-to-back. So of that 3-game run, Webby, let's start here. What stuck out to you the most? What was your biggest takeaway from those 3 games?
Well, it was really the ability on whatever happened from the loss to Cleveland to the win in Boston, and that's a back-to-back. Mm-hmm. That's really tough, and especially to play like the way that they did against the Cavs, a game that that they had circled on their calendar after what happened the last time they played Cleveland, and put up 79 or. Yeah, what was it, 70 points?
79 in the first half.
79 in the first half. In the first meeting, ended up losing. So that they had it circled on the calendar to come out and play well against the Cavs. Didn't end up doing that. A lot of circumstance, which I'm sure we'll get to, surrounding that Cavs game and why they didn't play so well. But the ability for them to really bounce back and have not a great showing against the Cavs, against the Celtics, but being able to take care of business in the second half of the back-to-back at home, I thought said a lot about this Raptors team. And why they're the number 1 seed. Why they're the number 1 seed in the East.
So here's the thing with me, right? To me, it was so interesting to watch the reaction that people had to this little 3-game run and how people, even though, Listeners to this podcast will know, Webby. What do I say? Do not ride the wave of the Toronto Raptors season, right? Just take it, like don't go up and down with each and every win and loss, right? Like it's about the bigger picture. But instead, it was, okay, they lost to Boston and people started to panic a little, right? Yeah. Then it was, okay, they lost to the Cavs, and then people really started to panic. And it was like the season's over.
Yeah,
and all this stuff.
Fire Casey if you don't do this
all
or
these
that
things.
In the playoffs, yeah.
And then even crazier than that to me, Webby, was they played okay against Boston, right? Like they played all right. Boston just played really bad. Boston is a team that, other than Al Horford, you're talking about rookies and then bench players, right?
Yeah.
And that team on the second night of a back-to-back looked like a bunch of rookies and bench players. And so the Toronto Raptors took advantage of that in a game that they had to win for sure. But it's not like they put out all the flames, let's say. So to me, the fun part was just watching the reaction of Raptor fans just riding that wave up and down to be like, oh no, everything's terrible. And then they beat Boston and it's like, oh my God, no, we're fine now. We're fine. See, we're back. And it's like, whoa. That game I didn't take away anything from that Boston game.
Well, just the fact that they won, that they got the W. A much needed one to stop the bleeding. Like, I don't care if it was against the Hawks or against,
that's fair.
That's fair. Or whoever. The second night of a back-to-back when you're traveling to, they were in Cleveland, then they had to travel to Toronto to play back-to-back against the playoff team. Say whatever you want, no Kyrie, bunch of backups, whatever. Mm-hmm. Be able to stop the bleeding said a lot, especially for a week that we knew that was going to be really tough for them, and to be able to salvage a win. They don't lose any ground really on Boston, especially now with what's looking like, their best players not going to be there for the rest of the regular season and playoffs. So they've got the number one seed. You just had to kind of, for your team, show yourself that you can get this done.
Yeah, you know what? Before I left work today, my guy Nish, one of my boys I work with, was saying that he summed it up perfectly to me, the Boston game. He was saying that, you're talking about Boston's team, and it's, Morris and Rozier and all these dudes playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and they're bench dudes. They're not really used to having that strain of, putting up big-time numbers on the second night of a back-to-back.
Well, Morris is an NBA vet.
For sure, but he's not the league cog on your team, and he was their leading scorer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there were dudes, they're running out dudes, I had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there were some guys
on the Celtics.
There were some straight, who he played for candidates on the Celtics. They were running out there. Whereas the Raptors on a second night of a back-to-back, at least you can say, okay, well, these guys are used to that, right? Like, they have their full team, their starters, their bench, whatever, they're playing in the same
Well, and that's the way they're built, right? Is to be able to,
sure.
Save a little bit of gas in the tank by having this rotation of players.
Totally. So I want to focus more on what happened in the first two games of that 3-game stretch, just because I feel like that was maybe a more realistic or maybe a more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Yeah, maybe more realistic look at what the Celtics and the Cavs will be going forward, especially now that we know Kyrie's not back, right? So in that first game, right, against Boston, to me, the thing that really threw me off was that I felt like the Raptors got bullied in that game. I felt like, to mention the Morris twin again, I think it's Marcus Morris, right?
Yeah,
Marcus or Mark. I can't tell the difference.
Good Philly guy. That's all you need to know.
It is Marcus Morris, yes.
Yeah,
so Marcus Morris is on the Wizards.
Right.
Yes. So Marcus Morris, right? We saw that he got tossed at the end of the game, and he was just talking shit to Serge and CJ Miles. Like, he was just talking mega shit. Gave the ref the slap on the ass on the way out. Right?
Yeah, that'll get you fined every time.
Right? That was amazing. But they just seemed to. Rozier is like, that straight Louisville grinded out guard. Like, it was a weird game in that sense. I felt like the Raptors looked like they got bullied in what will be more of a playoff style game. Then they followed that up against the Cavs, and I was just like, whoa. Kyle Lowry in back-to-back games got massively outplayed by Terry Rozier and Jose Calderon. That, to be honest, made me worried. Webby, what was your takeaway from those games?
Listen, so the Celtics one, you're right, is a little more, concerning. We were a little, trepidatious about exactly, that bully ball, when it gets physical, when you need tough hoops, who do you turn to on this Raptors team to get you those mean, ugly, down low, Anthony Mason type points and type play, right?
Yeah.
Can you get it from Siakam? Can you get it from Pirtle? Oftentimes, sure you can, but not on a consistent basis, right?
You need that to be Lowry and DeRozan.
Yeah, exactly. So the game against the Cavs, especially, well, listen, Kyle Lowry got outplayed by Jose Calderon, who had a late half of his career game. Like, that's the thing about the Cavs moving forward. It's like, you're not going to get that from Jose Calderon every night.
Hold on a second, though. Hold on a second. The last time the Cavs and the Raptors played, we were told that we weren't going to get that again from George Hill. They weren't going to shoot like that again. And then this time around, we get a great game from Jose Calderon. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Now, the other circumstances about this, too, are like, that I am fully in the camp of, you got to give Lowry a break on that one.
Okay, so let's get into this because I know you got something here.
Listen, you're the number one seed in the East. Mm-hmm. If you're Kyle Lowry, you're allowed to have a game like that.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, let's get into this because we all know the biggest storyline was the fact that Kyle Lowry went to the national championship game to watch his alma mater,
Villanova
Wildcats, win their second NCAA championship.
Second in 3 years. What up?
Second in 3 years. Kyle Lowry flew out, flew back, was back in the morning in time for practice or shoot around or whatever, but then had a horrible game. Okay? I'm going to ask you, Webby, do you think that his travel plans, his night out, let's say, had any effect on his play during that game against the Cavs?
Of course it did. Of course it did. And listen, we were making jokes of like, whatever, how much fun he was having or whatever. Mm-hmm. He could have been an absolute saint. He could have been drinking water all night. He could have gotten a good night's sleep and gone to bed after that game, which, listen, I worked at 9 a.m. the next day, and I was up. I turned it off, right, as DiVincenzo ran out the clock. Okay?
Hey.
I know how late it was when the game ended. Mm-hmm. Okay? The guy had to get on a flight. I had to get to an airport. I had to get on the flight. I don't care.
Hold on. He had to go to the locker room, had to, shake some hands.
I'm just saying. As an absolute saint, if he just got up out of his seat and left, he would have been at his hotel by 12:30, 1 o'clock. All right? You're not getting a great night's sleep and then going to an airport and then getting on a plane. And that's if you're being an absolute saint. And I'm not blaming Lowry if he went out afterwards and did a little celebrating, a little champagning and campaigning, as Jalen Rose says.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. And listen, you're the number one seed in the East for a reason. You're allowed to have an off game. So I hope he partied his ass off. Okay. And you know what? It's one game in the regular season.
Here's my thing, okay? I think that Kyle Lowry, he could have went anywhere the night before. I don't care. He could have went to the moon and back. Doesn't matter to me. I don't really care. I just think that there is no excuse for you to get outplayed by Jose Calderon and Terry Rozier in back-to-back games. No matter what. You could have went, as I said, you could have went anywhere. You could have watched Villanova play. You could have watched your son play. You could have watched your mom play basketball. Doesn't really matter to me. You just can't have that happen. He averaged, 8 points per game against Boston and Cleveland while getting outplayed by Rozier and Calderon? That can't happen. And Kyle Lowry, maybe we're in a thing here, Webby, where Kyle Lowry is, pacing himself, getting ready for the playoff push. Because over his last 5 games, he's averaging 10 points per game. And shooting just 34%. To me, that can't happen. Jose Calderon, under no circumstances, can give you the business at this stage of Jose Calderon's career. It's frustrating to me. And the fact that he went to the game the night before, do I think that had an impact on it? I don't know, but I'll say it's not a good look. It's like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to go to that game, you cannot have a bad game yourself the next night against one of your rivals that that you guys have this whole issue with. It's legitimately your rival that you cannot get over the hump.
Sure you can.
You can't have that game the next day.
Sure you can. As long as it's not the playoffs, as long as it's not Game 7 and you're going to graduate and then coming back for Game 7, If it's a regular season, I don't care.
Do you know what, Webby? I'll agree with you because I'll say this as I've been saying all year long. These playoffs are no excuse playoffs for Kyle Lowry.
100%.
You're well rested.
So,
you have no injuries. The bench is giving you a rest the entire time. No excuses come these playoffs.
It's like LeBron a couple years ago in Ohio State playing football. Mm-hmm. Get it out of your system now. Okay? Take your 2 weeks off in the middle of the season. You want to go celebrate with your old, roommates from college because your team won do it now. Like you say, it's do or die playoffs for the Raptors. You gotta come. You gotta come ready for the postseason. All right. There's not going to be any nights off in terms of your preparation and getting ready for really competitive basketball. So I got no problem with him coming back a little sluggish against. And like I say, Jose Calderon's not going to burn you every game of a 7-game series.
Well, here's the thing, and here's a little stat. We like to sprinkle in some statistics every now and then to make it seem like we at least pretend like we know what we're talking about.
right. Rather than just yell about random shit. I understand.
But did you know that the Cavs are 23-9 when Jose Calderon is their starting point guard? In games in which Jose Calderon is their starting point guard. The Cleveland Cavaliers, 23-9 this season. That is one of the craziest things to come out of this Cavs season. And that's saying a lot. Because, again, J.R. Smith threw soup at one of their assistant coaches. Never forget that, right?
Never forget. Never forget. And Jose Calderon, listen, we're Raptor fans. I think he got a bad rap from a lot of Raptor fans. He was so serviceable for the Raps for so long.
Yeah.
Never missed at the line. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Came out and was a professional.
You know what? I'll admit, Webby, I was super hard on Jose Calderon as a Raptor. I was super hard on Chris Bosh as a Raptor. And you know what? I think it was just a matter of finding the proper pieces to fit around them. It was just left up to them. And they were good, just not quite good enough, if that makes sense. Which wasn't really their fault, because they did their job. Right?
I don't think that the team was built very well around them.
So, no, totally agree. Wholeheartedly agree. But the scary thing to me in that second Cavs game, okay, LeBron, he played well, right? He played well.
I think that he played amazingly well. Like, I don't think that what he did a lot was showing up in the stat line.
That's fair. But my thing was, if you look at the first game that they played, not the first game, I guess it would have been the second game that they played against Cleveland where the Raptors blew the lead, right?
Right.
That game at the end of it when the Cavs win, you could say, well, LeBron was just a beast. Nothing we could do. LeBron's a beast. That'll happen sometimes.
Yeah. What was it? 17 assists, no turnovers.
This game, right? LeBron was all right. He was good. I mean, I shouldn't say all right.
I was going to say, we're so spoiled, like, ho-hum.
But does that worry you that, like, it wasn't just the fact that they beat the Raptors pretty easily with LeBron just kind of playing a typical LeBron game? It didn't take, like, the virtuoso performance from LeBron James.
Well, hold on. It seems like every night we get a virtuoso performance from him, especially over the last 3 months. And again, while like the stats that come on the box sheet or on the box score maybe weren't necessarily there, I mean that offense was flowing through him against the Raptors. He would drive, usually against a double team, kick to the corner would kick to the wing, and the wing was, in the first half at least Jose Calderon, and then he would drain the three.
Yeah, it's crazy scary.
If you were counting hockey assists against the Raptors in the Cavs game, then LeBron would have had, it seemed like every time all the action was going through him in some way.
LeBron is going for basically 30, 10, and 10 since Cleveland made these trades.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But
30, 10, and 10.
But it's not that crazy, right? Like, that was his going to watch Ohio State this season. It wasn't a 2-week rest that he got. It was a brand new roster. Oh,
for sure. One thing I want to talk about, though, going back to Kyle Lowry for a bit, it made me really wonder something, Webby. I need your thoughts on this, okay? Adrian Wojnarowski did a sit-down interview, right, that aired this week on ESPN, and he interviewed Kyle Lowry, DeRozan, Dwayne Casey, and Masai. Okay, pretty interesting snippet in it was Casey, well, all of them actually, talking about Casey and Kyle Lowry's at times icy relationship, right? And in this, they discussed the fact that Kyle Lowry thought it many times. He said he'd go to home at night and think, well, it's me or him. One of us got to go. This is done. We got to go. And then what ends up happening is DeMar is the one that plays peacemaker, and Casey will sometimes go to DeMar and be like, hey, man, can you tell Kyle this? Hey, we need to do this. But he'll use DeMar as kind of the go-between. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, okay, these guys filmed this interview obviously before this little 8-game slide. I'm doing air quotes because, I mean, as you said, they're still first place in the East, right? But it was just weird to me because it was a reminder, okay, come playoff time when we know things get tough, right? Is Dwayne Casey going to have the Sam Cassells to hand the keys to Fred if Kyle Lowry struggles?
Well, I think that the big thing about that Cavs game, where I think the failure wasn't necessarily with Kyle, I think it was with the coaching.
Ooh, okay.
Because I that whole game, and I mean, I'm not the only one. Like this, everybody was saying it on social media was the same thing. If he's struggling
CJ
this
Miles
bad,
was struggling.
If Kyle's struggling this bad, and obviously, listen, say what you want, like there was something he wasn't playing very well, and in that situation, you can't keep relying on this plan, on this. This is what coaching is. You've got to be able to adapt, right?
Yeah.
So if Kyle's not playing well, then hey, you know what? Put Fred in. Replace those minutes with DeLon's minutes or with Fred's minutes, Because in the playoffs, when the stakes are so much higher, these decisions have to be made. Because if you're just doing the same thing against the same opponent for 7 games, you're gonna get figured out pretty friggin' quick. So
and it won't be 7 games; it'll be 4.
So you got to be able to if you have to recognize that Kyle is struggling, and you have to find a solution to it right away.
Totally. The other thing, what else to pay attention to, Webby, was, and I noticed this in the Celtics game actually, it was, can the Raptors, and I want people to pay attention to this because I think this will be very interesting regardless of who they end up playing in the playoffs. Can the Raptors afford to play Kyle and Fred down the stretch in games? And I say that because when you watch the Celtics game, Rozier is like a big guard, but that's fine. One of your point guards can handle that. But the Celtics were running out a lineup where the 2 spot was either Jaylen Brown or Tatum.
Yeah,
and those guys were getting shots off whenever they wanted to. So you cannot play Fred and Kyle. Now, when we get into the playoffs, and again, matchups are going to be so key. The chessboard, the chess pieces, how you move these guys is going to be so important. That's the thing that I want to see and how Casey reacts to that. Can you play Kyle and Fred together down the stretch?
Right.
Because I don't know if you can against a lot of teams.
Well, and if you can't, then you've got to find out who you can.
Yes.
And again, against what kind of lineups you can run out, 2 smaller guards, or who your 2 big guards are in that situation.
The other thing too, if you are playing those guys, then you have to play that style and you have to run, because that's where they got into trouble too against the Celtics in the first game for sure.
Yeah.
Not as much in the second game, but the Celtics are out there playing Al Horford and Monroe, and the Raptors are playing slow and half-court basketball.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
You're playing
right? You
into
gotta
their
run.
hands.
Exactly. You got to get out and run, and you can see the Raptors, especially their bench as well, but their team is playing much better when they play with pace, and they're running up and down the court. And the flip side to that is, if you are playing half-court, let JV cook. Oh my goodness!
What was up with that? But that's again what I'm saying about this plan, right? The plan is that JV doesn't get a ton of fourth quarter minutes, right?
Yeah.
If you're struggling in the fourth quarter with a point guard that's not playing well, why not put in JV and see what it's like?
Totally. Totally. No, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Webby. Just one last thing in terms of this wrap it up segment here, talking about the Raptors. Now, they've lost with their with their loss in Boston and Cleveland, right? They've lost all 4 games on the road against the Cavs and Celtics. So what does that tell me?
That tells me that it's pretty good that you're a number 1 seed in the East, where you're going to be hosting Game 7s the whole way.
Exactly, right? So that's how important your winning first seed in the East is, because you have lost in Cleveland and in Boston in every game this year. That's not a good trend, right? So here's a stat, and we touched on it a couple weeks ago, and now it's starting to pop up again as people start to look for the warts and what could be wrong with the Raptors. And people talked a lot about the defense, right? And people talked about the defense, and the Raptors basically have had the worst defensive efficiency in the NBA since March 18th. That's not a good look, and that's a far cry from what they were doing earlier on in the year, right? So I don't know, but I'll say this. Let's take a look at some stats, okay? Let's pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Let's hear the numbers. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Yes. You know me too well, right?
Of
You
course.
know me too well. So here's numbers for you, and you tell me if they're lying or not, okay? So versus teams that are 500 and above, the Raptors are 23-20 this year, okay? They score 110 points per game and a point differential of +3, okay? Teams below 500, the Raptors are 33-2. They score 4 more points at 114, and their point differential is +13. So basically, the Raptors beat up on the crappy teams, the middle of the road teams to the basement teams, but against teams that are above 500, 23-20. And if you look at 2018, here's who the Raptors have only lost 12 times, but here are the teams they've lost to. The Heat, Warriors, Sixers, T-Wolves, Jazz, Wizards, Bucks, Thunder, Cavs, Clippers, and Celtics. And the Clippers are the only team on that list that aren't in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, does this trend concern you, or does this trend tell you that, hey, they're just a good team and sometimes good teams lose to other good teams? What does all of that tell you, Mr. Andrew Webster?
No, of course, that's a disturbing trend. But the good thing is like, I want to know what the same records are with those same teams. What's Miami's record against teams above 500? You know,
yes.
What are the Wizards' record against teams above 500?
I can tell you that, actually. No, go on.
But you know what? Like, so that's the thing is you know, regular season is about putting yourself in the best position come playoff time. So you have to beat the teams that are worse than you. Now, I'd be lying to say that, listen, having those games be the ones that you've lost here in the year 2018 so far, it is a disturbing trend. Mm-hmm. But again, the good news is with the playoffs is that you're going to get a crack at those teams on a game in, game out basis for 7 games at the most.
You're totally correct in your ask of what are some of those other numbers. And as you bring up the standings here, I can tell you, for example, the Cleveland Cavaliers this year are 21-22 against teams that are above 500. Right? So you make a very good point there, and nobody's going to be doubting the Cleveland Cavaliers, right?
Exactly.
Because they have LeBron.
Right.
You make a very good point there, Webby. It's interesting. And I'll say this, okay? And this has been my plea for the entire season. It's about managing your expectations as fans and the media, right? Because the reason why I say the media is because the fans listen to the media. So managing expectations means, okay, cool. I look at that and I think, you know what? Yes, they lose to good teams, and that tells me the Raptors are a good team. They are one of the top teams in the NBA, but they're not in that top tier yet. And is there anything wrong with that? No, because I said yet. Because we know that they're trying to build a program of sustained success, something that this team has not had their entire existence. And now you're talking about a 5th straight playoff year, right? And it doesn't look as if they're not going to make the playoffs again for another, 2-3 years at least? You know what I mean? And I think that is the goal of what Masai Ujiri and Dwayne Casey are doing. They're trying to put together continued success. And so people forgot about managing their expectations because they let them get all out of whack because of the great run the Raptors were on earlier on in the season. People turn their expectations to, we need to make the conference finals, or we can make the NBA finals, or we have to beat LeBron. And it's like, that can't be your expectations. If that happens, cool. But if it doesn't, hey, there's still a lot of good things happening within this organization and a lot of things for these guys to be proud of and a lot of things for fans to be proud of, no?
No, absolutely. Listen, to be able to put in a new system, this year one plan, and have it result in a championship is unlikely. Would be amazing, but is unlikely.
For sure, but Webby, think about that. To put in a brand new system like that and to have it result in the most wins ever in franchise history.
It's something to build on, for sure.
And coming in first for the first time in franchise history as well, like winning the Eastern Conference, having the first seed for the first time in franchise history as well. The first year you fully install your new offense, like that is a great achievement. And so regardless of what happens in the playoffs, because I know people are kind of worried now and they think anything's on the table. And, I'm one of those people that have always been worried about, the first round, right? Like I've never thought the first round was going to be a gimme, whether you have the first seed or not. So now that it's on the table because people have seen, they've lowered their expectations back, after the Cavs game.
Right.
People now, you hear things about, should Casey be worried about his job and all that? And I think that's so ridiculous.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Right?
100%.
Like what this man has done with this team, I think, and I've always thought this, he's maxed out what this team has been able to do for years upon years upon years. Getting these guys to buy in on defense for the past few years with whatever role players they're given, whether it's Grievous Vasquez or Lou Will, or do you know what I mean? He cycles these guys in, or Patrick Patterson, who we're seeing struggle again. Dwayne Casey has been able to put these guys together and put them in a position to succeed in each and every year. And the thought alone that Dwayne Casey should be worried about his job is completely and utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Again, it's like this is year one of your new plan. If you were going to make a coaching change, it would have been before this. But obviously, Masai believes in our boy Dwayne, and you know what? It's going to be at least another 2 years after this to see if he can keep up like you said, the sustained success of this new culture change.
Totally. So overall, Raptors fans, don't worry so much.
No, you're the number one seed. You're
number one seed,
and
continue
the best player on the number 2 seed is now out.
Yes, right? And continue to listen to this podcast because we've been giving you the goods about managing your expectations. Relax.
Little Stuart Smalley action. You're
right?
you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you.
Right? And like, hey, if you make the conference finals, great. If you make the NBA finals, extra great. I'll be down there cheering you on in Jurassic Park or on Yonge Street celebrating. But if that doesn't happen, you know what? We have a legitimate NBA franchise that as a fan base you can be proud of. Yeah. And that is good. That is a far, far cry from Rafael Araujo.
Yeah, and listen, if the playoffs do go Atlanta Hawks-wise, as they did for Atlanta a couple years ago, you know what? This isn't going to – the end result won't be the same as that. It's not like you have big pieces that are going to get signed away in free agency.
Exactly, right? Like I think we know that, okay, Fred is a big part of your future going forward. You know that Siakam's a big part of your future going forward. Like you know that there's some good things here bubbling, and now there's that trust in your support staff, your draft, your scouting, right? Like, hey, things are okay, Raptors fans. Breathe easy. Can we say the same about the Boston Celtics, though, Webby, as we change gears here and head to turn up or turn down?
Turn up or turn down. Turn up means good. Turn down means bad.
For those new listeners, we make a hot take and then it's either turn up or turn down. Turn up equals good. Turn down equals bad. Okay? So with the news that Kyrie Irving, Woj bomb earlier Thursday afternoon, Woj tweets out that in the aftermath of left knee surgery, Boston Celtics all-star guard Kyrie Irving will miss the rest of the regular season and playoffs. Irving will undergo surgery on Saturday and need 4 to 5 months recovery. So, first hot take. The Celtics have no chance without Kyrie in the first round. Webby, turn up or turn down?
Turning down on that. Think of what they came into this season with in terms of arsenal with their lineup and what they've gotten out of, like we said, bench players and rookies, basically.
The Boston Celtics are 14-6 without Kyrie Irving. They've had 13 different players start for them this season, which is kind of crazy.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
So,
and as they start to get other players back, like I'm not sure if Marcus Smart is coming back for the playoffs or when he'd be back. But the great thing is with Stevens and the Celtics, you don't have to worry about these players getting reacclimated to the lineup.
For sure. I'm also turning down on this with you, Webby, because, of course, they have a chance in the first round. They also have a chance in the second round because, as you said, and I know your hesitation there is because you're thinking they were playing the Sixers in the second round. I'm not going that far as to who they will be playing.
Listen, Sixers or the Pacers.
Hey, I'm not going that far as to say who they would be playing in the second round. We'll save that for a little later. But I'm saying that I'm double downing. I'm going to double down on what you just said, Webby, because Brad Stevens, we've seen it time and time again, okay? He put Isaiah Thomas in a position to succeed, and we've seen Isaiah Thomas drop 30 a night, be an all-star, get MVP votes because he was put in a position to succeed. We've seen him obviously do it with Kyrie to start this season. We've seen it with Terry Rozier. We saw it with Marcus Smart when Kyrie first went down. We saw it with Shane Larkin, right? Think about, we've seen it time and time again, and even when you watch their 2 games against the Raptors, and you see that they're playing Monroe or they're playing Al Horford heavy minutes or Morris even, right? They're running sets to get these guys to their spots. I don't watch a lot of Boston Celtics games, but I can tell you right now that Marcus Morris's key spot is that elbow jumper because they were running a lot of sets to get him a jumper there, and he was splashing them. So I'm watching that just seeing 2 games of theirs, and I'm seeing, oh shit, like when he gets it from that spot, he's banging in those jumpers each and every time. And that tells me it's just what you hear all the time about Brad Stevens, and he just knows how to figure it out. And what his players do, he will find a way to get them to do it. Monroe was taken off the scrap heap, right? And he's been a very key contributor to them, especially since Kyrie's gone down. What they're doing is totally crazy. And of course they have a chance in the playoffs still.
In the first round. Now, who would...
Yes. Sticking to the question in the first round, yes.
If the season were to end right now, who do they get? Milwaukee?
Right now, no. Right now, the standings go. Milwaukee is in 8th. Washington is in 7th.
Not after
Miami
tonight.
is in 6th. Oh, so there's games going on tonight.
Washington's
depending on what's going on.
Washington's killing Cleveland. I'm watching it right now.
Washington is killing Cleveland?
Yeah.
So that would move Washington up, and Miami does not play tonight. The Bucks are about to lose. The Bucks seem like they're just, happy to come in 8th and play the Raptors.
They're ready for the Raptors for round 2 after last year.
They're about to lose to the Brooklyn Nets at home. Ugh. So, But, so here's the thing, right? Things will be okay for the Celtics. They'll play whoever they have in their first round matchup tough, especially if it's Washington. They will play them tough for sure.
That'll be a great a Morris on Morris first round.
Right?
Count me in, They're gonna fight each other, man. I wouldn't put it past them.
So let's focus in a little more on Kyrie here, right? So Kyrie's out, and he put up a long Instagram post just talking about getting over the hump of things and proving people wrong, and you have to deal with the adversity. And he discussed a little bit. He said that he was the one that said he has an infection in his knee and all these things. But what I want to focus in on here, Webby, is are you worried about Kyrie Irving's health going forward? Because, as we know, we were told that this was going to be a minimally invasive procedure. And now we get this, okay? So we find out that he has an infection from screws that were put into his knee from a prior surgery. So that means he had tendonitis. We know he had the fractured kneecap. He's had a lot of surgeries on this knee. Also, if we remember back, which we talked about on this podcast, Webby, Kyrie in the offseason, when the trade talks came up, there was a report that Kyrie, when the Cavs first said, no, we're not going to trade you, Kyrie said to them, trade me or else I will sit out the entire season and get my knee surgery.
Right.
So I'm asking you, are you worried? A little bit of karma? Hey, just putting it out there. I was waiting to see the LeBron James tweet today. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for the.
I'm surprised. When you sent me the email, I was surprised that it hadn't already happened.
Right? The shade LeBron tweet that, it's going to be like, prayers up for my bro Kyrie. But really in his head, he's thinking, serves you right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that's not even a knock on LeBron to say that he has a huge ego, because let's be realistic. If we put ourselves in LeBron James' situation, right, we would have the exact same reaction if we're being totally honest with ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
After how all this played out.
And I would probably use memes to get across my disdain as well.
I mean, it's so crazy when you think about just everything that's happened. The Kyrie trade, Isaiah just being a flop, Isaiah getting traded to the Lakers, LeBron rebuilding his whole team midway through the season.
Getting a new team.
Isaiah then getting season-ending surgery, and now Kyrie also getting season-ending surgery. If you look at this worked out the best for LeBron and the Cavs, no?
It looks like it, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
because
at least in the short term. At least in the short term, right?
If they don't make this trade and Kyrie stays, Kyrie then gets hurt, and they have the same team, no?
Yeah.
It's really weird how this played out.
And without a revamped bench of guys like your Rodney Hoods, your Larry Nances, Jordan Clarksons.
For sure. Are you worried, Webby, about the Celtics long term? Just in terms of Kyrie's hurt, we don't know if this knee thing is going to linger again. But, I mean, you're talking about multiple surgeries on the same knee. And obviously, we don't know what Hayward's going to come back like. Are you worried about the Celtics' long-term health?
No, I'm not that worried. The 5 to 6 months recovery time is a lot less than what it could have been. And if it was worrisome, then you would be looking at more of I'm way more trepidatious, way more cautious about Porzingis' recovery.
Ooh, yeah.
Especially because that's a bigger guy. And a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, who's coming back from an Achilles injury. That's a tough injury to come back for a big guy. Now, the persistent knee injuries for Kyrie definitely sucks. But I think this is something that as long as the infection gets cleared up and everything, I would think that a recovery would be, likely.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? I want to give a lot of credit to the Celtics here for being smart with this, right? And realizing that, hey, what's the point in bringing Kyrie back to try to make a run during these playoffs anyways, right? We're thinking long-term, next year, the year after that, they still got a couple picks that are in play. Whenever that Lakers picks turns into a thing, they have a Memphis pick will turn into a thing either next year or the year after.
That Lakers pick, if it goes to the Sixers, then becomes the Kings pick in 2019. And listen, the Kings aren't going to be good next year either because the Kings aren't ever going to be good. But just like the Raptors, they have a long-term plan for sustained success. So there's no point in pushing Kyrie to play in an injured knee for this 1 year, especially when you don't have, your other big weapon that you added in the offseason in Gordon Hayward.
For sure. And this could be kind of cool for the rookies to get some extracurriculars, right? Because now it's on them come this playoff run, right? It'll be them leading the way. It'll be them getting that, extra battle-tested experience in the playoffs because they'll be running the show. And then now next year, when you do get Kyrie, when you do have Hayward, the rookies, Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they'll be better served for it because they've been through it, but they've had to be the man through it, right? So if they have to just carry it for a stretch, let's say next playoff, they'll be better prepared. I think this could work out really well for the Celtics, and it sucks because you never want to see anyone get hurt, right? And it sucks in this sense of how it played out for Kyrie because he wanted to get away, obviously. He was so excited about getting to play with the Celtics, and if we remember too, he's the one that threw the alley-oop to Hayward on that play, and he felt bad about that as well. So just the way that everything has played out for Kyrie Irving this year has been really, really tough. So I hope that he and Hayward come back better than ever next year and the Celtics have another run because they deserve that. And you don't want to see guys get hurt, right? We want to see these teams battle it out at full strength.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we both turned down on that hot take because we think the Celtics do have a chance in the first round. But you mentioned, who they could be playing in the second round, and that might be another team that you might be familiar with, Mr. Webster.
Boy.
A team that happens to be on a 12-game winning streak, the longest such streak since 1990. And, this hot take is everyone in the East should be afraid of the Sixers. Everyone. Turn up or turn down, Webby.
That's a big turn up. That is a big turn up. Listen, man. I'll tell you, about the only player who's had a better calendar year of 2018 than LeBron James is Ben Simmons. And
you know what?
Hey, remember?
Hold on. Before you continue, Webby, I would like to apologize.
I was going to say, remember when we were having these debates that Donovan Mitchell might be Rookie of the Year?
Listen, man, was I anticipating that Joel Embiid would go down and Ben Simmons would reel off a 10-game run of averaging 13, 10, and 11 in his rookie season? Dude, would I have I didn't anticipate that. That's a thing that happened.
He's mad. Listen, I'm don't strike me down. I'm looking around my living room here for lightning bolts and storm clouds forming above me, but he looks like Magic Johnson, man.
Yo, man.
He is just big. His passes are insane, and he gets to where he wants to go on the court at any time.
It's so, so true. And you know what's crazy? Because we spend so much time overanalyzing the NBA draft and stupid draft workouts. And I think it was Steve Nash always said this, and it always stuck with me, that he hated the draft process because people always focus on what you can't do as opposed to what you can do. Right? And Ben Simmons is a perfect example of that because all we heard is he can't really shoot. He can't do, we heard about that being the biggest detriment. And can he shoot three still? No. Does it matter?
Hell no.
Right?
Whoa. Dude, it doesn't.
Defenses know that he can't shoot. They sag off him and he just blows by them.
It's insane. Now, the other thing, too, is we mentioned that Embiid's not been in, but even the last two games without Saric. Mm-hmm. And Saric has been awesome this year. And I thought that was really going to hurt them, but Jesus, man, Ben Simmons is a problemo here.
So to back that up, Webby, Ben Simmons is third in the NBA in triple-doubles behind some dudes named Russell Westbrook and LeBron James. Okay? Again, Ben Simmons is a rookie. Ben Simmons joins Oscar Robertson as the only rookies in NBA history to finish the season with 600 rebounds and 600 assists in their rookie season.
That's insane.
That is absolutely
600 assists and 600 rebounds? That's, whoa, guy.
It's incredible what Ben Simmons is doing, and it's incredible because, the stakes got higher because people expected them to slide without JoJo, and instead, they've more than maintained a 12-game winning streak. Now, it's not like their schedule has been a murderer's row or anything like that.
It's been pretty trash, but again, like the Raptors going 23 or 33-2 against teams with under 500 records, you got to get it done, right?
You got to play who's in front of you, and when you're dealing with injuries, especially, just get those wins. And it's so important because the standings are so crazy, and there's a big time matchup right?
Oh,
Between
Friday
the Cavs
night.
and Sixers. Friday night, Webby, with huge implications there. What do you think heading into that big matchup? What are you thinking? What's going to be the key there? Is Sarge going to be back? Do you know?
Where are we? Are we in Philly or are we in Cleveland?
I will look that up right now, but I'm pretty sure they are in Cleveland is my guess, if I remember correctly.
I'd bet
my computer.
I'd bet Sarge doesn't play.
Okay.
It's really interesting too because the Sixers have an opportunity to get the third seed.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Especially if the Cavs lose this game against the Washington Wizards, which has been very good now. It was a beatdown, and now it has gotten very close. But I don't know. I think that'll kind of play into it because, shoot, if you can get that third seed in the East, it might be worth bringing out Sarge. But then again, you don't want to push it. Listen, I don't know. I'm not Brett Brown, but listen.
Oh, and you whatever Brett Brown says, you're trusting now.
Oh,
Trust in that process.
You got to trust the process, bro. You got to do it. Listen, City of Champions.
Yo, do you know what else is big too? Woj says that Joel Embiid, they're expecting.
First round.
Sorry,
yeah, he'll be ready.
Not expecting, but they're saying that he's on pace, he's on schedule to be back for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's going to be wearing
he's
going to be wearing an MF Doom mask. It's going to be awesome.
Of course he is, right? Of course
he's going to look badass. Yo, JoJo with a mask, it's going to be nasty things. And listen,
it's going to be crazy.
He's the guy that you need in the playoffs too, right? I mean, we've been talking about it for months now about the way that, play slows down and, you're milking the shot clock and you're playing for that one possession. That's what JoJo does, man. Down the block, he can burn off the clock and make those tough shots. Ooh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Sixers in the playoffs.
I'm excited to watch them too, just because I think, when you look at the future of the Eastern Conference and you're looking at teams like, sorry, Webby, for the record, the Cavs are now up 1 with 21 seconds left in this game.
I know. After I said it was over.
What just happened?
You know
that
what?
Is crazy.
You know what just happened? And I've been watching it. Just like the end of Game 5 of the finals last year when LeBron and the Cavs were down and then LeBron just kind of took over for like 10 minutes. And just bullied everybody down into the paint and scored whenever he wanted to. Yo, LeBron just did that for the last 10 minutes.
He does that sometimes, right? He does that. That happens.
And his numbers tonight, did you see his numbers?
No, I haven't seen his stat line.
He's 31, 7, and 14.
That's amazing.
It's crazy.
To correct my earlier mistake, the game tomorrow night is in Philly.
Okay, it's in Philly.
Yeah, the game will be in Philly. Big matchup there for the Cavs. This is a big game as well for the Cavs because we just said it. How big is it that you would have to play Boston without Kyrie Irving or the Toronto Raptors?
Yeah.
Obviously, you'd rather play Boston. So that's what makes that third seed so much more important as you look forward to a second round matchup, right? So that game tomorrow night or tonight, Friday night in Philly, massive, massive, massive. And if that winning streak is still continuing, LeBron would love nothing more than to, end that streak for his possible future team. I don't know if you're on this, Chris. Have you seen this Chris Sheridan stuff he's been pushing out?
Oh, a little bit. Yeah.
Well, there's the headline. We don't need to get too far into it because
I'm not trying to get too into it, but listen, I thought the same thing in 2009. It's like, why not join the Heat? And now it's like, why not join the Sixers?
Well, his article is basically just all about how LeBron is definitely leaving the Cavs just because the relationship between him and Dan Gilbert, there's too much drama, there's too much there. It is just done, it's over, and that's why LeBron will definitely leave Cleveland. And he paints a picture that maybe, just maybe, the place that LeBron should go is the Sixers. I mean, that would just be crazy. That will give us a lot of content for the offseason. But until then, there's so much other goodness in the NBA to talk about, including Webby, the next stop on our turn up, turn down segment, which is the Wild Wild Western Conference. And things are getting so hectic in the West that a team like Oklahoma City, that preseason was probably one of the teams favored to be at least battling for one of the top spots in the West. But instead, they're now battling for their playoff lives in the Western Conference. They currently sit in 6th, but they are just 2 games out of 10th. Okay? With 3 games left in the season.
It's so great.
They are struggling. And the person getting most of the blame for this, other than Russell Westbrook, because when things go wrong, everyone blames Russell Westbrook.
I don't think anybody can blame Russell Westbrook this year.
Well, everyone says that you can't play with Russ. But if it's not Russ, then the next question is...
It's Carmelo Anthony.
Which leads to our next turn up, turn down topic. Carmelo should come off the bench. Webby, turn up or turn down?
Wow. Yeah, well, Carmelo should come off something.
Well, here's the thing. The Thunder are in trouble. Melo is shooting 34%. 34% from the floor over his last 5 games.
It's ugly,
he
man.
averaged just 13 points per game in March. Webby, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking they got a big Carmelo problem.
So what do you do, though? What do you do?
Well, we can leave it up to the Munster kid to figure it out, right?
Jeremy Grant. Yeah, Jeremy Grant.
No,
you're talking about Billy Donovan.
Yeah, Eddie Munster.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Eddie Munster's going to figure it out, right?
I totally misheard what you just said there and caught myself, and I was like, that is amazing.
I don't know what you do because you didn't get Carmelo to come off the bench. You didn't make that move for a bench player, and you've been treating this whole season like he's going to be somebody who's going to be a scorer in your starting lineup. And then now you've got to try and figure out, well, okay, like you say, a guy like Jeremy Grant, who's been playing pretty good minutes off the pine, can you replace Melo's minutes with him? Or maybe a Abrinas? Can you think that can Abrinas give you the scoring that Carmelo's not giving you now? Because
to me,
obviously something you can't keep putting Carmelo out there in the starting lineup. You're asking for trouble.
I mean, you know what it is, Webby? I think that, I'm going to turn down on this and say he shouldn't come off the bench because I think if you put him on the bench, you will lose him for sure. Like whatever you're getting out of him now, you'll just get less than that. And then yes, you might be saying, is that even possible to get less? Right. But I don't know if you want to find that out. I think it's more about how you manage the minutes. We've been talking about this a whole year, and I think they play Melo too much only with Russ and only with PG. And I think that if you give him more looks, you give him different sets where he's in a better position to score than just him on the wing trying to ISO someone and score off the dribble. Get him some easy baskets, get him some cuts rolling to the basket.
But with that bench unit, are you going to get much? I mean, are you going to get many open looks where, won't every defense be keyed in on Melo? I think that putting him, I don't know.
You're right. You do bring up a very good point. I don't know. I mean, it's just a matter of, you're at a point now where you're in 6th place. Your last 3 games are at Houston, at Miami, and thank goodness versus Memphis to end the season, right? And how important is this? I mean, you cannot fall out of the playoffs, right? That would just be a complete and utter disaster. And I don't think that's going to happen because I think there's too many games and the Nuggets and Clippers have too many difficult games within that. And so I don't think that will be a thing. I don't think they'll fall out. But you cannot end up in 8th. You don't really want to finish in 7th where you have to end up playing Golden State with or without Steph Curry. I don't think you want to do that in the first round if you're OKC. You have to win and maintain and hopefully get up into that 5th seed so you get that 4-5 matchup and maybe you can take out Utah or the Spurs in the first round.
Again, good luck.
Right? But you're saying Melo's washed, it's done, it's over?
Yeah. Well, unless, I don't know, man. He sure looks, and it came on pretty quick, too.
It did. You watch some of their games and I don't know, he'll have 1 or 2 games where he looks okay, and then you have other games where he just looks awful. And he's giving you nothing, and it's just bad, bad, bad. I mean, hopefully they figure it out, because I'll be rooting for them. I want them to give Golden State a go. I also want them to play Golden State with Steph Curry back, right? Like I don't want them to play Golden State when it's when they're injured like this and they have, I don't even know that dude's name. Who's starting at point guard for them right now? I don't even know the guy's name.
For the
Warriors. Yeah, I don't even know.
I didn't know who it was either. I saw him the other day. Well, he got his ass kicked by Victor Oladipo tonight, I'll tell you that.
Oladipo. Crazy stuff, Webby. But, hopefully Melo and company can figure things out. And when they do, we will be here to talk about them again on the Ball on Blast podcast. But what else do we like to talk about here on the Ball on Blast podcast, Webby? We like to talk about the interwebs.
Feed me, the best and worst things to come across our social media feeds from across the basketball world.
Oh, we love the net.
And I was able to come across something in our Feed Me segment, which for our new listeners, Feed Me segment includes the best things to come across our social media feeds from the NBA on a weekly basis. And by far, the best thing to come across my social media feed didn't have to do with the NBA per se, but it was still basketball. And it wasn't exactly about your boy Dante DiVincenzo, Webby, but it was somewhat linked. I know that's your guy now, isn't it? Your guy is Dante DiVincenzo.
He's basically like a basketball playing Carson Wentz. That's what I said. He's basically Carson Wentz.
That is actually amazing, Webby. But other than your boy Dante DiVincenzo absolutely just stealing all the limelight from March Madness on Monday
how good
night.
Was he in that final game?
So good. But the best thing that come across my social media feed was actually before the game. And CBS put together, I don't know if it was CBS or Turner or whoever was in charge of this, but the opening for March Madness on the U.S. broadcast was they had your boy, fresh off his Black Panther fame, Chadwick Boseman, right?
Yep.
He does the intro for the play for March Madness, and they had that brand new Weekend song, Weekend and why am I drawing a blank? Kendrick Lamar song, right? Bumping in the back and mixing in with the highlights. Who Need a Hero? Like it was really dope, setting the mood. Then they had Big Sean pop up, and he's talking about Michigan, and he's from Michigan, obviously, and I think he said like his mom or his grandmother also went to Michigan, and you're getting all the hypeness. And then all of a sudden the camera cuts, and we get to the Philly portion of this one. And who did they get to represent Philly?
I'll tell you, somebody better than Big Sean. Somebody who's got a lot more skills than Jay Sean or Big Sean.
Well, you know what? Before this, I knew this, right? I knew that, right? I knew that obviously Black Thought has more skills than Big Sean before watching this. But after watching this, my respect level for Black Thought went up a whole lot more. Because I know how difficult this would be. Okay? Should we play it? Should we listen to this?
Put it on. Yeah, it's so sick.
Let's put it on. Let's play it for the people because, again, people might not have even seen this.
Yeah, especially in Canada, right? Because I'm sure that they didn't play the opening tease because they don't play One Shining Moment anymore.
Exactly. We don't even get One Shining Moment. We're definitely not getting Black Thought. Okay, so I'm going to play this. This was just a snippet of the opening from the March Madness final on Monday night. This is Black Thought repping for his Philly squad, Villanova.
Don't dare me, I'm here. No other organization is near me. The victory's mine, I've signed it sincerely. So don't even waste your time trying to compare me. We've been winners, no creed could contend with us. I'm Dante DiVincenzo meets Mikal Bridges. A different league than Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, but a war we are all indeed. The instruments, and I'm still a soldier. And I fight for Villanova until it's over. So no point scored is closure, more exposure. As we enter the Pantheon, home of the Eagles, wingspan of the champions. This last chip and I'm finally home free in the land of OG Wildcats that roam free. Where only one team could be the one and only hold the runner trophy. And tonight we gon' see. Let's get it.
Let's get it indeed,
Unreal.
Webby. So here's the thing that made it so dope to me, right? Because I know how these things come about, right? And if you're getting this guy and saying, hey, can you put something together, do a little freestyle for us about Philadelphia and Villanova for our March Madness tease. And this guy comes in and he's dropping I was about to say Bill Simmons. Wow. He's dropping Ben Simmons references, Joel Embiid references. Apollo Creed, right? Like, it was just so dope and it just flowed and it was just so much harder than anything else that was going on in that opening before. And the whole opening is good, not to diss it, but when that part came on, I was like, oh shit, this is so fire. Oh my God, so good.
You know why? It's because Black Thought is the most underrated MC of the last 25 years.
I mean, I don't know if I can argue with that.
And you know what?
I can't.
Like, I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves because the Roots are really seen kind of more as like a band, you know, a lot about the music with the Roots and you know, now they're like Jimmy Kimmel's house band. But bro, I want you to go back and I want you to put on Capital Punishment with Big Pun and Black Thought.
Ooh.
Okay? And just listen to Black Thought's fucking verse, man. I'm telling you. And then go on YouTube and listen to Black Thought go off the dome for 10 minutes on Funk Flex's show from a couple of months ago.
Yes, I remember you did tell us to listen to that a couple months ago. I remember when that happened. Yeah,
it's one of the most surreal things that you'll see. The speed at which he can like bring out these connections between these words. Dude, he's unbelievable. And I think that he's just so underrated by the mainstream hip-hop listener because of the stigma behind the Roots of them being more of like an artsy jazz rap group, quote unquote. But man, Black Thought has always had fucking skills, man.
It's okay. You can say it. Jimmy Fallon's whack, and people now associate the Roots and Black Thought with Jimmy Fallon.
I know, man. It's terrible.
Side note. Did you see that Jimmy Fallon? So for the first time ever in Tonight Show history, there's going to be a co-host, and it's Cardi B.
Oh, used to dance. Now I make money moves.
Like, Jimmy Fallon is so lame. He's just and this is not a knock on Cardi B. This is a knock on Jimmy Fallon because that's a reach. Jimmy Fallon is such a loser. Like, I don't know. I'm way Team Kimmel, and I just feel like this is just Jimmy Fallon struggling in ratings, and now he's trying to get ratings off Cardi B's name, which, I mean, he's definitely trying to do. But whatever. Sorry. That was an aside there. Shout out to Black Thought.
Super Lyrical, the song with him and Big Pun. It's off Capital Punishment.
I will go back and listen to that.
Listen to Super Lyrical. I'm telling you. And you're gonna I know it, man. It's amazing.
I'm in for sure. And as we wrap up here on the Ball on Blast podcast, we check in on our Ask on Blast, but really it's just turned into Ask on Blast about Atlanta. How good was last week's episode?
What was my dude's name?
Bibby.
Dude, so Atlanta's so great because do you know the what a bottle episode is? Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, for sure.
It'll usually happen in a serial show like a Lost or whatever, and they'll just do one episode that's kind of about a specific event or a specific thing that it's kind of out of the general narrative of the show, right? So this was kind of like, now Atlanta does, it almost seems like every Atlanta episode is a bottle episode.
It's so true.
But having this be like just the limited storytelling of Paperboy with Bibby for a day. And like I said, man, I think I said a couple of weeks ago, one of my favorite things of the show is just like the look that Paperboy gives people when he's like, the fuck are you talking about, man? And it was like a half hour of that look. I was loving it so much.
It was so good. And you know, it's so funny. We were talking about it at work, and Memi was like, I was actually getting mad at Bibby.
Yo,
like, that's
dude, it felt like it was one of those things where like you're watching it and you feel yourself getting pissed off, or like it was almost like there was a tension and you were just like, man, fuck this guy.
Yo, but there are so many levels, and right when you just thought that it couldn't get, so for people who haven't watched the show, and if you haven't watched the show, you should be watching this show. It's so amazing.
Basically, it's the best show on television right now, hands down.
I'm not arguing that. It's so good. And what they did in this bottle episode was they basically had Paperboy, who's the main character. He's trying to get a haircut at the barber shop, but his barber is just, they took basically all the stereotypes of the black barbershop and dealing with your barber in terms of him talking, him being on the phone while you're getting your haircut.
This is why I cut my own hair, Shelly. This is why I cut my own hair.
But they took all of those stereotypes and just like put them on steroids, right? And blew it out of proportion. And Paperboy ends up on this like day-long mission with this guy just trying to get a haircut, because at first he says, oh, I can't cut your hair here because I got to make a stop. Just come with me and I'll cut your hair at my girl's house. And they end up like all over the place. And it's just the most craziest thing ever. But it's so, so funny. And to me, the part where I actually, Webby, laughed out loud was when he gets into the crash and they're sitting in the car. And then I'm just like, this is so ridiculous, right? And you're just like, I don't even know what's going to happen next. And then he just looks down. He's like, fuck it, and puts the car in gear, reverses, and drives off. I laughed out loud when that happened. That was so good.
Amazing. It was amazing.
That show is the best show on TV, and it was summed up perfectly because it takes the real life situations and just blows it up. And so the episode ends in the most perfect way ever, where Paperboy is sitting in the chair, and next time he comes into the barbershop, he doesn't go to this guy Bibby, he goes to a different barber. Problem is, when he sits down and the barber asks him, okay, so how do you want it done?
Exactly, yeah.
Paperboy doesn't even know what to say. And true story, I've been going to the same barber forever too. And if I had to sit down in a chair and be like, oh, give me a number 1 or a number 2, low, whatever, I wouldn't be able to explain it, right? It was just so perfect how that episode ended. You're right. Best show on TV by far. No arguments. So smart. Also, too, we talked about a couple weeks ago, whenever the episode was when they went to like that fake Spotify.
Yeah.
So did you know that was a based off a situation that actually happened? So I didn't realize this. So this show what they do so well is they take real life situations and put it into the show. So earlier on, when they had that scene where the lady was on YouTube and she was complaining about Paperboy's song.
Yeah.
That actually happened in real life. Like there's a woman, if you Google it or if you put it on YouTube.
About Childish Gambino?
It was about Vince Staples. And there's this blonde lady, and they replicated it to a T. It's this blonde woman, and she's complaining about driving in the car. She's like super religious, and she's talking about driving in her car. And this song came on the radio, and it was Vince Staples, and she's reciting the lyrics. And it's so like, it's exactly what happened in Atlanta.
No way.
Right? So the flip side to that is also as well that same scene where they're at the fake Spotify, and remember they're walking by and there's a dude rapping on the table.
Yeah, yeah.
That's also taken from real life, and there's a video, if you go onto YouTube, of Bobby Shmurda when he gets his deal at Epic Records, I think it is. Yeah. If you type that in, there's Bobby Shmurda doing it's the exact same scene. He's just standing on a table rapping to these people that don't look like they listen to hip hop.
Bunch of white guys in suits.
Hey, I wasn't going to say it, but that's how he got his deal. And you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God. It just made the show so much better because it's like
crazy. I didn't realize
we're thinking that it's jokes and it's fun and games, but they're actually giving you real talk and real yo, this is fucked up.
But that's one of the best parts that's one of the best parts about the show is that it's so like rooted in like you say, like real words. Like they're not trying to fuck around with you and like make up, weird stories or anything too out of the realm of reality and like it's awesome. It's on tonight. I can't wait tomorrow after work. I'm going to come back and watch it right away.
Yeah, it's so good. So well done. My definite favorite show. And maybe the next thing we'll find out is that Justin Bieber really is black. Who knows?
Yo, that was the craziest. That was the absolute craziest.
Still so good. I think we should wrap it up there, Webby. That was another great week of the Ball on Blast podcast. Another great week of Atlanta. Anything else that we missed there, Webby?
Well, we were going to talk about billions, but we'll save it for next week. We'll save it.
Yes,
I have some very spicy takes.
Yes, we'll save it for next week. I'll let you. Please tell me at least you'll watch next week's episode of Billions, and then we'll talk about it.
Watch the first 2 episodes.
That's fine. You can watch the third
Yeah,
episode
100%.
too. No,
Dude, I'm gonna
Okay,
watch it.
okay.
Like, there's not a lot on right now, so I'm gonna
Okay.
watch Billions. It's like, remember the Newsroom?
Yep.
Yo,
Yes.
I used to watch the Newsroom every week. I fucking hated that show, man. That show sucked, and I watched it every week.
Amazing. Well, we will talk about that next week, as long as we will also talk about, of course, the NBA and everything going
We'll
on
be
in
ready
the basketball
for playoffs,
world.
right? By next week.
Playoffs. Yeah, the regular season next Thursday. Regular season should be over. If not Wednesday or Thursday, I'm pretty sure the season should be over because the playoffs should start probably the following Saturday.
Yeah.
So we should be doing a playoff preview on next week's
man.
episode. Woo! Of the Ball on Blast podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And until then, if you agree with any of our hot takes or disagree, you can hit me up on Twitter at Shell Alexander or on Instagram. I was about to say Facebook for some reason. I don't know why that was
Yo,
on
get
my-
off Facebook with that.
Yeah, maybe because I had to watch the Mets game on Facebook yesterday, which was so dumb.
Yo,
But anyways,
fucking
right?
brutal Mets game.
Or you can find
You mean
me
the Phillies
on-
game last night?
Listen, once your boy Gabe Kapler figures out how to make pitching changes properly, okay?
Man.
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Webby, where can the people find you?
Yo, you can find me at awebster84 on Twitter, on Instagram. Again, like, just bemoaning the fact that Gabe Kapler doesn't know which way is up.
Until next week, we are the Ball on Blast podcast. Find us on anywhere you get your podcasts, on SoundCloud, on iTunes. Find us, subscribe, rate us, do all that fun stuff. We're even on YouTube if that works easier for you as well. Find us, as always, the Ball on Blast podcast. We're always unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.
On blast.
This is Ball on Blast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network, available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you like it, then subscribe and tell your friends. Holla.
On blast.